don't think they should be teaching still. First they do
Thank you. family for another year, so I did. A year later, when I turned 22, it was definitely time for me to go out on my own. I'd had enough wood chopping to last a lifetime. I packed up my few belongings, moved over about 30 miles outside of Springfield to a new village over there on the river called New Salem. When I got to New Salem, I did several things. I did some storekeepers, some postmasters, some blacksmithing, surveying. Anybody know where I carried the mail when I was postmaster in New Salem? In my hat. This is called a stovepipe top hat. So it's got a lot of room so you carry all your mail in there, and that's exactly what I do. What are you laughing about? One day, a lady stopped by my store. She came in, she said, "Mr. Lincoln, I've got this big long list of things I need. Could you please help me with it?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I'd be glad to help you." One of the things Miss Hildy was asking me for was a nickel's worth of tea. Now back then we didn't have tea bags like you do nowadays. We had loose tea, and it had to be weighed on a little balance scale. So I went over the scale, put the weight on the scale, weighed up this nickel's worth of tea for Miss Hildy, put it in the bag, gave her that and all the other things she was asking me for. She had it on home to her cabin 4 miles out in the woods. Now it was kind of toward the end of the day, so pretty soon I closed my store and I went on home. Next morning I came in, I got my broom and I was sweeping the floor, getting things all cleaned up, ready to go for another day's business. Got my dusting brush and was dusting around. I got over to that balance scale, I about had a heart attack. The weight that was on the scale from the day before, I'd forgotten to put it back in the weight box, and I realized it was not for a nickel's worth of tea that Miss Hildy had asked me for. It was for only 4 cents worth of tea. I had cheated Mrs. Hildy out of a penny's worth of tea. Now I had 3 choices of what to do about this little problem. I need you to help me figure out what you think we should do. Number 1, I could have put that penny in my pocket, just made an extra penny's profit from the day before, but that wouldn't have been right, would it? No. Number 2, I could have given Miss Hildy back the penny. Or number 3, I could have given Miss Hildy some more tea. What do you reckon I ought to do? Most of you did, that since tea is what you came to my store for, tea is what you ought to get. So I weighed up more than a penny's worth of tea, put it in a bag, closed the store, walked across town, 4 miles out in the woods to her cabin. I got out there and she said, "Mr. Lincoln, I appreciate it, but you didn't have to walk all the way out here. You could have just given me that tea the next time I came to town." And I said, "But Miss Hildy, I didn't know when you might be coming to town again, and this seemed like the fair and honest thing for me to do was to bring it out here to you." Pretty soon the word got out around New Salem, if you want to be treated fairly and honestly, you go to Abraham Lincoln's store, because Honest Abe was going to take good care of you. And that is how I got the nickname Honest Abe. And now you know the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say. They did. I gave them 50 cents for it, and they had it on their way out here to the west somewhere. I stuck the barrel over there in the back of the store because I didn't have time to worry with it right then. Sometime later I went over and I was just going to pitch it out the door. But I decided to take a look through that barrel just to see what I'd gotten for my 50 cents. Virginia, the war finally came to an end. It's no wonder that no matter how hard you look, you will never ever find any pictures of me as your 16th president smiling. Not only had the war been going on the whole 4 years that I was your president, with over 3 million soldiers involved, 620,000 had lost their lives, 2% of our entire nation had lost their lives. Another one of our sons, little Willie, had died near the White House at the age of 11. It was a very sad time for Mary and for me, a very sad time for this great country of ours. When it was over with, Mary started talking to me about taking her to a theater somewhere to relax and forget about the war. I said, "Mary, I don't have time to go to any theater. I've got a country to put back together again." And she kept after me about it until I finally agreed that we would go on Good Friday, April the 14th, just 5 days after the war had come to a conclusion. There was an actor by the name of John Wilkes Booth. He didn't have a very famous name for himself like his brother Edwin, his father, and his uncle, and other family members. And John Wilkes Booth, in conspiracy with Payne, Harold, Azawad, Surratt, and others, decided to do something to make a name for himself. At first, he was going to kidnap me and hold me ransom to get us to release some of the rebel troops. When he failed in his kidnapping attempt, John Wilkes Booth decided to do something much more drastic. When he went to the Ford Theater that morning to pick up his mail, he heard that we would be there that evening. So he did some things to get prepared. He took a board and hid it behind the curtain and led up to the presidential box 7 and 8, took a knife out of his pocket, drilled a small peephole through the door. He then went home and waited. It was a very busy day for me that day. I had a lot of people to see, a lot of important papers to sign, and finally, at a few minutes after 8 o'clock, we were ready to leave by carriage from the White House to go to the Ford's Theater. We were going to pick up General and Mrs. Grant, but at the last minute they decided to go to New Jersey to visit some family members up there. So we went by Senator Harris's house, picked up his beautiful daughter Clara and her fiancé, Major Henry Rathbone. When we arrived at the Ford Theater, it was approximately 8:30. The play had begun at 7:45. The actors and actresses, the audience stopped and stood up and applauded as we came in. The orchestra struck up, "Hail to the Chief." We went on up to box 7 and 8, and we were enjoying the play, a British comedy, Our American Cousin, starring actress Laura King. We were enjoying it until a little bit after 10 o'clock during the third act of the play. At that time, the one guard that I had stationed outside the door over there, his name was John Parker, decided to leave his guard post to go downstairs for a cup of coffee. When he did,